Say hello.
I am here today with my mother. This is Rebecca. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Rebecca. I am her mother. I am a United Houma Nation member, enrollee, whatever.
A citizen.
Citizen, yes. Official. And I guess I am going to say about how I got into the history, knowing about our tribe. I was adopted as a child, so I didn't have the upbringing of being raised in the Native American culture. I found the family in 1994 or 5, I can't remember.
I think it was 5.
Was it 5? Okay, 1995, and then, it's kind of like they just brought us all in. It's like we were a part of the family even before we knew it, and it was very welcoming environment. And now that we had gotten to know what tribe, I always knew I was Indian, I just didn't know what tribe. So once we got to know what the tribe was, then I really wanted to know more about it. And we also met our Aunt Corrine, who is now, I call the family historian, I'm sure everybody does too, but she's the one that actually kept us informed and knowledgeable about everything that's happened before I found everybody, and brought us up to date of history of the tribe and stuff, and then we took it from there. And
quick question.
Mhm.
How did you know that you were Indian?
it was on my birth certificate.
Oh, and there was nothing else besides that?
Nothing else besides that, but at we were part of Catholic Charities, and at the orphanage, when my parents had adopted my older brother, who was not related to me, but when they got to pick him, they picked one that had Native American blood. So when they were looking for their next child, the nuns really didn't give them an option, but they wanted to keep the type of children together. So when I came along, they brought me in there, and that's how I got into the family, because they kept like Indians. And he is a United Houma Nation Indian also. He has his own search on, but that's how I knew. I always knew I was Indian. Like I said, it's in the birth certificate. It says the Indian flat out. And it just it took a while. I think it took over 5 years or so or more to find the family, and then we were given subtle hints of where to look, and without actually being given outright information.
From Catholic Charities?
No,
Oh.
actually from a person that I believe had information from Catholic Charities. They were kind of like their own investigator and stuff, and they kind of gave you subtle hints. Look in this direction, and look in this direction, and put ads in these papers and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So they gave ideas, and then once I narrowed in on it, I did hire a private investigator who worked the area. So and she actually placed, once we narrowed in on Houma, she placed the ads, and then it took a couple of times, I think, of her placing it before she got a response. And from there, history was made.
I had another quick question too, I guess, about the placement with your brother. So did you know that you were from the same tribe, or you were just like, here's 2 Indians?
That's basically the way they did it. Is they knew that we both were Indian. We actually looked more Indian back then than I do now. We were both darker skinned and everything, but once you work inside a building, you kind of get lighter after a while, and not exposed to the sun.
Or never wear shorts?
Yeah, and not if I want to scare anybody. But yeah, other than that, that's the only thing. Louisiana is in the prehistoric days, or whatever you want to call it. They're very. If you have any minority blood in you, that's what they're going to focus on it, you know, and that's what shows up on your birth certificate. Yep. So, but yeah, I mean, once we found the family, you know, then we just started delving in, and then once my daughter got older, and she really did a lot of help because she did her own searches and her own discoveries and stuff, and I'm learning through her, you know, because she keeps, she's more out there and you know, amongst people. But
I mean, I was only able to do that because of you and because of y'all sending me down to Louisiana during the summers to connect with the family and be with the family.
I think the best thing right there is for you to have gotten those summers to one-on-one, and without us around, you were able to absorb and catch up on some of your French and
Un petit peu. Soy mal.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna move the camera a little closer, and I'll ask a couple more questions. Because yeah, we're only at 6 minutes. You got more life in you than 6 minutes. Okay. So, do you want to talk about, I guess, what it was like going through these connection processes through these different people and systems, and what it felt like whenever you got a hit, or what it felt like when you didn't get a hit too, and kind of like the timeline of it unfolding? And
oh, you mean when I was doing that?
When you were doing the research?
The discovery of the family? Well, actually, I had a late start on that because I didn't want to upset my adoptive family, which was a very good family. But basically, once I had my daughter, then it was more of trying to find, at least I went in with the idea that I want to know health issues. And I had myself in my mind saying that this is the reason that I wanted to find them. And that's basically what I told my adoptive family is I wanted it for the health. If nothing else happened, which this part is true, if nothing else happened, that was it. I mean, if I knew I found them and they didn't want to have anything to do with me, I was okay with that because I didn't have a bad upbringing, and I had that to fall back on. But then they would have, at least I would have gotten some history to do on our own, even if the family didn't want to be involved in it. I had a connection with a tribe, and we could do it on our own without having to get involved, you know, getting the family involved, because I didn't know what the situation was. I didn't want to disrupt whatever it was that was going on, and that my mother had to give me up. I didn't want to bring anything bad into that. So I was probably about 30, I think, when I decided I was going to start looking. And then it was an on and off, because you know, yes, I wanted to find out. No, I didn't. You know, kind of nervous. And then once I did put my thought into it, saying this is the way I was going to do it, then I started doing it on my own, from up in New England, which is a little difficult but I did as much as I could. And then once I got closer and closer, with the help of the different connections I got from somebody at Catholic Charities, put me into touch with somebody that used to work for them, thinking that they could help me. They helped me to a bit, but then they put me in touch with somebody else. They told me to contact the local sheriff's department, or excuse me, not sheriff's department, local investigators down there. But they didn't give me an area, so I started off in the New Orleans area, because that's where I was actually adopted out of. And then they kind of narrowed it down, and then it just went back and forth until I got the area I was told that should be down in the Terrebonne-Lafourche area I should be looking at, but they didn't mention an Indian tribe.
So they didn't even say Houma, they just said Terrebonne-Lafourche area.
Yeah. So, and, I didn't even look at what tribes were in the area. I just kind of, okay, well, let me see what kind of newspapers were out in this area. And there was, I think, a couple of them, I can't remember, but I do remember the Houma Courier was one of them. and by that time, I found a investigative company, a private investigator, who assigned me an investigator, and she was new at it too, but she did everything. I mean, she went all out, and a lot of it was on her own, but she put the ads in, and we put one ad, it didn't go anywhere. I think that was maybe 8 months before we put the second ad in, and that one came out, if I'm not mistaken, close around Mother's Day, because I think Loretta, who was one of the older sisters, they said they saw it, but they were keeping it away from my mother, and other people saw it, and then they all got together, apparently, from what I was told, and they were trying to debate whether they should tell her or not tell her, and it went from there. But eventually,
So there was a family council
yeah,
that was involved too.
yeah, behind her back, because they weren't sure how she was going to handle it, and other extenuating circumstances that they weren't sure if it would be a good thing or not. So they were kind of feeling it out amongst themselves. They say, "What do you think?" But then once everything was said and done, and they came out and met me at the airplane when we set up the date, and actually, excuse me, I talked to her on the phone before that. That was like. This happened around Mother's Day. I think I was on the phone with her in June or July, and then I came down in September before the rest of the family. The rest of the family came out at the beginning of the following year.
Okay, so maybe it was 94.
Yeah, so 94 and into 95. So, when it was just me, I came in September. It was around the Labor Day weekend, if I'm not mistaken. It was just like, I got off the plane, these people who I never met before, I felt comfortable with, like I've seen them somewhere before, and then when they took me out to where they lived, the road, I don't ever remember ever going down the highway, Highway 90, or into Montague, which is where they live, but it all seemed familiar, which is the weirdest feeling. I thought I was going to have butterflies. I thought I was going to be nervous as anything, but it worked like I had never left, and it was kind of the weirdest feeling. And from then on, everything was hunky-dory.
Cool.
Yeah.
Was there ever any issues with the family and reconnection?
As far as...
I guess in the early days of like people not wanting to reconnect with you, or when it happened, everyone was just like, "Hey, what's up?"
Actually, none that I knew of.
Okay.
I mean, if there was anybody, they never told me, because everybody, and you got to look at, my mother was my biological mother, but her husband at the time was actually my stepfather, but he accepted me as his daughter, and that was the sweetest. And that's all I can think of, is he was my father, these people were my parents. And all his side of the family accepted me as their child, or as, a member of their immediate family. So it was the nicest feeling, because I think they were more apprehensive about letting him know, because they didn't know how he was going to feel having somebody that was not his child. But all he kept saying was, "I look so much like her." I think that's probably the thing that helped, is the fact that he saw her in me, and that's what he could relate to, is that I'm his daughter. Everything was good, and he was the sweetest man. My husband loved him to death. They were like two peas in a pod, those two.
I love him so much too. I always remember him being like, "You don't have to call me your papa." And I'd be like, "But you're my papa," and he'd be like, "Oh, okay." You're like, "Aw."
Yeah, your dad, my husband, just loved him, and he still, as a matter of fact, we talked about it just last week. We saying, we were talking about something. He's like, "I miss that." Yeah, I'm not going to say
I know
he uses cuss words, but yes, I miss that. That person.
Yeah, both the Kirby's.
Yeah, he felt like he was cheated out of both of them. My brother Bud also, because they were all just so nice to him, and that's what he remembers.
Yeah, it's a far difference culturally from up north.
Yeah.
Like, they just
Yes.
welcomed me and
Yep.
gave me a beer at 9 a.m. out on the porch, and there I was.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of the family.
That's what sold him right there. You never get this anywhere else.
Vacation.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Okay. But other than that, yeah, I mean, as far as learning more about our tribe, I really enjoyed that. Then I started getting involved with going to the council meetings, which was, in the very beginning, I didn't see a lot of what was behind the scenes, but the more you kept going, the more you see how much of the political part of the tribe is so much like colonizer politics, and it really kind of changed my whole perspective of how tribal council is, or how tribal politics is, and I was really, I think, hoping that it would be a whole lot different.
It's politics, but with family on
Yeah,
top.
yeah, exactly.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but I can't say that I didn't I really enjoyed learning about it, to tell you the truth. More of the history, and that part I really attribute to my Aunt Corinne, because her and all of the people that I met around her all have, all the elders, they just keep you and my daughter and everybody informed, let us, we know what's going on, and we keep involved, and I belong to groups now that are helping, are working for our people, that I really, that's where I feel like I'm actually helping. I'm not really helping.
Definitely
I'm
helping.
along, because I'm not a take charge type person, but, point me wherever you need me, and I'm going to do it. I want to do it. But those groups involve the people, not themselves. And that's what I'm looking at.
So you really like to do the cultural and community connection with the tribe, and that community aspect versus like the political.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they're not patting themselves on the back. Bad English. I'm sorry. They're not patting themselves on the back and saying, "See what I did." They are out there doing stuff for the people, and if they get recognized, it's because the people are recognizing them and thanking them or whatever. They're not looking for it. Whereas you're dealing with the leadership, the tribal council members and stuff, and not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them are like this, but some of them, especially in our current system,
Administration or whatever.
Yeah, administration. They want their. It has to be their idea, or they don't recognize it, and that's wrong. You're supposed to be there for the people. The people supposedly put you in that position to help them, and you can say you are, but you're not. Helping is not throwing them a party here and there, and that's not that's just to show you that we're doing something. Okay, we're giving you a party. We're
Pizza party.
yeah, and we have the elders parties, but that's not helping the elders. That's just throwing them a party, and here's a prize, and awful. That's not the way to help them. So, but all these other organizations they're out there, they're doing it. They're the ones that are really accomplishing the job, especially during storms and stuff.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess, are there any ways or things that surprised you in being involved with the tribe, or being involved, connected to the tribe, that you didn't expect to come up against when you were reconnecting, or, let's start with that.
Okay. I'm not too sure.
Oh, I can rephrase it if you want.
Okay.
So, yeah, like, when you reconnected, did you have an idea about the tribe and being a part of a tribe that kind of got shaken up as you were involved over time? And how does... Let's start with that. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I really didn't know what to expect, because I've never been part of a tribe. I mean, all I can say I've ever seen was Indians depicted on TV, and that's all fictional. And I was hoping it wasn't that. Thank goodness it wasn't. But I really did, sitting around the campfire, the only experience I've ever had with being signaled out as Indian, and was when I had our own business, and I was going for a minority woman-owned business.
Designation.
Yeah, but we were in Maryland at the time, and the gentleman that was my contact,
Caseworker?
caseworker, yeah, basically. He was a nice gentleman, African American, and he had no problem. He did everything. They did their interviews out with the crew. He said, at the end, everything looks good. Then we had our meeting downtown with the person that's in charge of giving you the license for minority, whatever, was a white woman. And if she had done it on paper, I would have gotten the license. But she wants to see everybody, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "I've been taken wrong on so many of these things," because she says, some people, what she's looking for, she says, is, "I'm not Indian enough. I don't look Indian enough." And she says she's had that issue with other people, and the reason she said that is because if I was darker or whatever, then I would have experienced the prejudices and stuff that go with being an Indian or being black or being Mexican or being whatever the minority is. And she says, "Well, does anybody does anybody here know you're Indian?" I said, "Well, I have everything on my vehicle saying I'm proud to be an Indian, blah, 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 that's about it." And I said, "My family knows I'm Indian, but they're all back in Louisiana." I said, "They know I'm Indian." But I think what got me is the fact that she denied me because I did not look Indian enough, and I came home and I was so upset, and to the point I was yelling, like, I guess I need to put a teepee and put a horse out front, to prove, but that's not my tribe, and for anybody to have that indication of this is what an Indian's supposed to be, that was wrong. That upset me. Mm-hmm. And when you look back at our tribe, that we don't have horses, we didn't have teepees, we had palmetto huts, and we had
bayou cabins.
Right, exactly. Everybody was out in the swamps, and they were fishermen. They didn't start off as fishermen, but when they were further up, they were hunters and warriors, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. And then they were pushed as the colonizers came in. They were pushed down towards where they are now. So they learned to live off the land, with being fishermen and what have you. But for somebody to tell me I'm not Indian enough, and even to this day, all of the young people, especially, because as you're growing up, you got mixed blood, but you still have that Houma blood or that Tunica blood or that Chitimacha blood or whatever tribe it is. You still have that in you, but you may not look like that. I work indoors all the time, so I'm not outdoors like that. I can't help it, but I'm still Indian.
And when he put you right next to Anchorine, you're like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah."
Is that the only way I can prove? I have my membership, my enrollment card, but that doesn't designate me being a Native American. So that all those type of things, I've actually learned. I didn't have that issue when I was younger because I never knew who I was. But now that I know who I am, why should I have to prove it? It's kind of, it makes me offended. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I even get it at work. So it's kind of like people, "You're Indian?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I put it on every application, everything I sign up on. I put myself as Native American, and I have been for quite a while, for several decades, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. But then when I look at I have it, I put it on my application as Native American, but then when I see it in the system, it shows as white because that's what they put in, not what I put. I've had to make them go back and change it because of that, and oh, it was a mistake,
And for me, what gets me too is the gall of that lady to say, like, well, you haven't had the experience you've had as a how you are is not indigenous enough. You are 60s scooped. You were taken by Catholic Charities and given away, and just here's an Indian baby. Like, how much more indigenous is that? Is
it was
this
a
story?
A different time back there in the '60s, and yeah, it's just I don't know.
I feel like we have a lot of analysis now about that time period of like, oh, well, yeah, that was really messed up and this was happening and they were really trying to shove it under a rug or not bring attention to it or whatever the case may be.
Even nowadays, the things are coming out that this was done and kids were being taken away from their families and stuff like that. That wasn't the case. I wasn't taken away from the family, but I was put into a Catholic Charities, and from what I was told, the only reason Catholic Charities could take me is if my mom signed off on it saying that because they weren't Catholic. They were, I don't know if they were Baptist or something at the time, but she had to sign a waiver saying that that they're Catholic or that they want me to be raised by Catholic family. She had to sign it. And the other thing is that she didn't know that she could have gotten me back because I didn't give her that information. She said that when I was born, she didn't hear me cry. The nuns had actually taken me out of the room before I even cried, and they let her believe that I had passed away. So all these years, she had thought that I had died. My grandmother, her mother, did not. But she
knew. Mama knew.
Mama didn't feel like.
Oh, okay.
She didn't know, but she didn't feel like that had happened. And that's why she had always said, even when we found her, she said that she was waiting for me to show up, and then that she was ready to go after that. And I said, please don't go. But she never believed it. But I think for my mom to deal with it, she had to believe that I was dead. And somehow I don't think in the very back of her mind that she believed it either. I think that's probably why she had such a rough, young, life and everything. It's because I think that was probably eating on her, and she felt guilty, thinking that she might have killed me, but it wasn't. And then it seems like once I was discovered, everything seemed to change for her and her family. Between her and my stepfather and everybody, it's just like a whole load was lifted because the mystery was now discovered and brought to light, and it was better than what they had expected, I guess. I don't know. I won't say that far, but yeah, that's got off on another subject, I guess.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and bringing Mama in. And
yeah, I love it.
She's so funny.
Yeah, she was the funniest. My best memory of her was when we took her up to the casino. Was it the one over in?
The Chitamacha one?
Yeah, and when they still had the little buckets with the money coming out of the machine, we were there and we saw her walking around with the bucket. She was just so happy. She had a bucket full of coins. She was so cute.
Oh my God, it's so funny. I can imagine it.
It was cute. It was the cutest thing.
Yeah, I guess I think I had another question, just completely forgotten, and I forgot to write it down, so that's gone. Kinship. Is there any other points on kinship you want to talk about in relating to your story? Or
well, I mean, other than
you can talk about your brother too, if that has an overlay, or that's his story too, so it's okay.
Yeah, that I really couldn't talk for him because that's his own thing, and it's completely different from mine. Unfortunately, he didn't have as good experience with his, and I'm sad that his didn't work out. But kinship, what I like is the fact that because of Kirby, my stepfather, we have this extended family that we all love, and even though they're not biologically ours, they are family now. And then in the meantime, not too long ago, I by sheer coincidence that we did the blood, the DNA test, that I was able to find a biological father, which is, didn't match completely everything that my mother had in her non-identifying information with the Catholic Charities, but it did have some. So he was able to fill in some pieces of that. Didn't have enough time with him though. He did. We had what, 5 years, maybe years before he passed. But he was, we did get some time with him, which I'm glad. Yeah, better than not having any time at all. But
and that's one of the things I like to think about when people ask me how to connect. Is like these DNA data tests aren't good for connecting with like, oh, this is what tribe I am, but it did connect you with family.
Yeah.
And you were able to back that up by talking with other family and being like, oh yes, all of these things do match up. You are like this does actually make sense.
Yep.
And you were able to do a really authentic connection because of that, and nothing to do with trying to find your tribe or whatever
Nope.
other people use those services for. You were able to find your family.
yeah, and that just, like you say, that just confirmed that the people that we found were in fact our blood relatives and stuff, and we did have connections, and actually in some cases our step family is connected back when. So I mean, it really
Family bush.
yeah. So it really, we are connected all the way around. It's very interesting, so I did like having to do that. I mainly did it, for my kids, and now my daughter keeps track of that.
Badly.
Yeah, but more than
Not
me.
and a lot of that came from other family doing that work. Like
Mm-hmm.
that ancestry tree that we have is from a lot of people's work. It is not just one person clicking and seeing who the connections are. It's, okay, our cousin went over to the graveyard and was like, no, this is the correct name because this date matches this date. This is a different person even if they have the same name. And especially in our small communities, that's so important, of like similar names.
Yes.
Or somebody's like nickname being put on a gravestone and that's not their birth name, or that's not their government name or whatever, or like maybe the dates are wrong too.
Yep.
It's a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
And it does. You really have to take a lot of what people have in their tree. You really have to do your own research. I don't take for granted, and neither does she. Just because they say that we're connected, you have to. I only take for granted the governmental stuff. The birth certificates, the
Census reports. And
census
stuff.
reports, especially those I like, and then any other government, retirement, Native American. I mean, not Native American, but military records and stuff like that.
Oh, like the widower reports and
Yeah.
stuff. Those are important.
And then from there, because a lot of people, like you were saying, they just, okay, this is the name, I'm going to add this one to mine because it looks. They don't do the actual research, and that's where
This supports my narrative the most.
Yeah. So it just I don't do that, and we'll do the confirmation, like you were saying, somebody that actually does it and shows the proof and shows the connection, then it gets added to our tree, and then we can open more leaves from that once we get it connected. So that's interesting.
Yeah. It is really interesting. I'm really thankful too for all the work that you and our family has done on that too, because when I look at my own personal family tree and I look at how extensive our indigenous family is and where everyone came from and how they're connected and how it's a bush sometimes, but then I look at like the Jewish side of my family tree and I look at how that ends and what can happen when these records aren't there, because like a lot of the towns that the Jewish side of the family are in are no longer because they got literally eradicated. And so I don't take for granted the fact that I'm able to say the names of my ancestors because of the work that you and family have done. And I can't do that with everyone in my Jewish side of the family. We can only go back 5 generations, I want to say, maybe 6. It's not many.
Yeah, I'd say probably from your grandparents' grandparent.
Grandparents, yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and that's about as far that you can really see over in Russia. and Poland.
And yeah, the Lithuanian, one
Yeah.
Lithuanian. Yeah. So, yeah,
It's interesting, yeah.
it is. That's so cool. I'm not going to go into my tangent. This is your interview.
Yeah, that's okay. You're all connected.
We're all connected.
That's the next chapter.
Still kinship, though.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about kinship that's come up for you?
Just it's to this day I'm still finding kinship. We go to a meeting or we go to a restaurant or something like that with an elder, and that person will introduce us to somebody else that's a relative.
This is your cousin.
Yeah.
Hi.
I mean, it's all the time now. There's just so much, and it's really when we're down there in the Houma, Lafourche area, Houma, Terrebonne, Lafourche area, that we're still, discovering. And actually, we have some over in St. Bernard on the Fazio side, from your biological grandfather's side. Yeah.
We're up at the St. Bernard now too.
So I mean, it's just really interesting that they're spread along all the pretty much all the parishes along the Gulf, which is where all of the Houma has stated that we're 6 parishes that that they acknowledge that we're part of. Even though a lot of us have spread out to other areas, like I live in Baton Rouge, she lives here in St. Martin's Parish. Is that
St. Martin, yeah.
A lot of our family has had to move away from our base parishes, I guess you want to call it, because of losing homes due to hurricane. And that's another thing that learning from. We were able to see the devastation of erosion from Aunt Marcia and her Punk's family when they had a camp in an island out in the middle of the Gulf. We got to from Montague, and when we got there, there was two cabins still left. They said there used to be like 4 or 5. I can't remember. But there was only 2 when we saw that, and then after a while, both of those disappeared. I mean, it just didn't take any time at all. I mean, from the late 90s, when we first saw it, till 2000s, the whole thing disappeared. They were all underwater. And it's just amazing how all that got swallowed up, and we're seeing that now happening to our own family. It's just kind of scary to know. Eventually, I'd like to move. I wanted to move it down there when we were ready to retire, but will that area still be there when I'm ready to retire? It's just kind of scary to figure out which way you want to go, because I definitely don't want to stay in Baton Rouge.
Which also was Houma land.
Yeah, it was. But now it's a
governmental seat, I guess.
Dodge City now.
Yeah. Is there things you want to talk about in terms of worries that you have for other people's kinship, because you were away and came in, you see how things are degrading, especially down the bayou? Do you have worries about that for our people and things that you're seeing?
Well, that's basically what I was trying to relay, is that each storm is taking more and more away from everybody, really. I got a sister that lives close down, and her area does flood during hurricane. How much longer will her and her family be able to stay down there before? I know they don't even want to consider leaving. That's born and raised. Her kids born and raised. So
we're evacuating. They go 15 minutes up the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I hope y'all are okay.
But that's what they grew up there. I didn't. See, that's the difference, is that they understand it. They were born, raised. They've experienced it year after year after year, and I'm just getting into it, and really not much before the late 90s, and even then I was living out of state, so I could only see what happened on TV, and you're just amazed that your family is still surviving after that you haven't lost any family members to these storms that get worse and worse and worse and worse. So it's just, I just can't imagine 20 years from now, what's that area going to look like down there? I'm talking about lower Terrebonne Parish, even Lafourche Parish, but more Terrebonne, because that's where my immediate, my family is. So I'm just concerned, and as much, my husband loves it down there because he loves my family. It's just I'm scared to move down there because, I get a house and next year it'll be gone, and just.
And the insurance will be too friggin' much to
yeah,
afford
right
in the
now
first
it's
place.
it's even too much down there. So as much as I'd like to move down there, I mean I got my burial plot down there, which I'll be out to sea by that time.
We can both be put on a boat, pushes towards it.
Viking burial. Yeah, I mean I want to be. We got our plot in an area where it's predominantly Native American, a lot of Houma family, both my grandfather, which is my mom's side of the family, the Dion side, and the Coteau side out there, and hopefully it'll still be above water by the time we get in there, so we can all go float out to sea together.
This is a question that just came up for me. Do you want to talk a little bit about your kinship to the land itself? And you talked a little bit about how you went down there and felt at home right away, like you'd never left. Is there more that you want to touch on there, or things that have progressed over time?
Well, I mean, if I would like I said, I would have loved to live down there and have that, but I'm more of a realist now, and I see it as, I don't know, what I'd like to do and what's going to be there by the time I'm ready to do it. Two different things. I'd love to do like she is have the natural, the native gardens, the have my own food gardens and stuff like that, on a bigger basis than just having a few pots at where I'm at now. But I don't see that happening at this point, unfortunately, because where I want to live is disappearing. Where there's actual space is more cityfied than it is, family oriented and stuff. So it's kind of like I'm caught. I still have a few years before I retire, so I'll still, something may happen. I don't know, but I don't know. I still have that dream of being able to have some land to do something with,
Yeah.
and get out there and work it.
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
Here's hoping. And that's so real and rough with our people, is like this reality of the land, the water rising, the land either being poisoned or not being there or not having a lot of time. People down the bayou having to have raised garden beds because of the saltwater intrusion and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot about our kinship with the land itself and with the animal relations that we have.
Well, that's another thing I've learned with you and the groups that you are with. I learned now, which I wasn't raised that way because my adoptive father was a gardener, but they used the chemicals and stuff like that to keep their vegetables and what have you protected from bugs and stuff like that. But I've learned now of the benefits of not using pesticides, because we are losing our bees, and encouraging pollinators to your garden, and then also the wildlife. They have definite benefits for your garden, even though you may not like them. You want you don't want to hurt them. You kind of distract them a little bit, but not meanly, and not with pesticides, and not with traps, because that goes down the line. Whatever you put out for one is going to hurt the next one that eats that one, and the next one that eats that one. So it's a continuous thing. So I've learned a lot from their groups, from groups I've learned from their groups, and I'm just kind of really getting into all that. So that's one thing I'd like to incorporate, bat houses taking. I know I have a possum on my property somewhere. I haven't seen him, but I see the remnants of them.
And you don't get ticks.
Yeah, no. And the different. I know we have snakes, but I have to change them because my husband doesn't like snakes. So when I see them, I have to put them in a safe place.
Me as a little kid, look what I found. No. I'm okay, what's the problem?
Yeah, it was a beautiful ribbon snake. Was my last one I caught. Beautiful, and I had to I put them in a. Unfortunately, I had to bring them to another area that had a lot of wood, and hopefully they survived.
We got plenty here, so.
But yeah, I mean, just different things that I know that I will incorporate even in my current garden. Right now, I'm letting the weeds grow because I have salamanders. I have lizards. I love lizards. I know there are some little snakes in there, but I'm not telling my husband about them. They're the little brown decay snakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I caught a couple of those, but because I'm letting the weeds grow in the front garden, they're all under there. And I don't use actual. In some cases, I use mulch, but if I use mulch, I use it on top of the leaves, and I put all the leaves in there. Yeah, and all of that's my ground cover, and they're all under there. You just move them around, you see them all there.
Nice.
Got some nice big earthworms under there too. And so yeah, I just learning a lot. That end of it.
Yay!
It's actually quite fun.
Yeah, I love seeing all the different lizards and stuff here.
Yeah.
I have to save. I have a couple places over there. I'll show you later.
Yeah.
But there's like earthworm growing areas.
Oh, yeah.
But when I move it, the chickens are over there, and they're like, "Oh, good snacks for us," and I have to save all the earthworms and put them into my garden. It's fun.
Yep, it is. Yeah, when I was clearing out the winter leaves that I put in my garden. I was cleaning out all the winter leaves. There's some big fat earthworms, and I was like, okay, I took those, and when I was transplanting my fig tree and all that, I put them in the pot with those. Fig tree, the blackberry bush, and my 2 black cherry trees.
Nice.
Yeah, so they all have earthworms inside them now.
Good. Glad to hear. Get that kinship going.
Yeah.
What else can we talk about? Let me check something real quick. We're 48 minutes now.
Okay.
So, kinship. Are there ways that you wish that our tribe progressed kinship better or more? Or even if it's not our tribe, like, because you mentioned tribal community groups or stuff, how are the ways that you see kinship being shared and uplifted in those things that you like and want to pursue?
Well, I like the fact that, we do a tasso time each year, and that was a dream of one of our community, tribal members, and I love the dream. And I like the fact that it's not just Houma, it's all Native American tribes in and around the area. I bring them in from Oklahoma, bring them in from wherever there's Native American, are welcome to come to this thing. But it was originally started as a something that the Houmas did long ago, when they were all spread out. They would have twice a year would have a place that they would gather and bring everybody together. It's kind of like a big homecoming, big reunion. And from what I understand, they used to match up the young people or whatever, and try to get them married off or whatever. But it was a time for them to reconnect because they're all spread out. Stock up on food and whatever, and then after that, then they went back to their places that they occupied, and they did this spring and fall, if I'm not mistaken. And I like that idea that we're bringing it back. She had this big dream, and it came to fruition, and I really like it. And next year will be our 5th year.
I think so, yeah.
Next spring will be our 5th year of doing this, and it has been really nice to bring back the arts, bring back the activities, the sports and stuff that they used to do back then. You had tribes that came in and brought their equipment and taught our young people how to. Some of the elders too, but I can't keep up with them.
I can't
But
either.
but bringing their knowledge of their different activities, sports, or like blowguns from the one elder. Just the different tribes and their
Like life ways.
their life ways and stuff, and then you have all the elders that discuss things with you and let them know what it was like for them growing up, and then you have the artisans showing you, and then we have what I love is the one that comes in, and Mr. Johnny, he does the ancestry thing, and he helps people with that, and that's, I mean, he can sit down with him and he will talk and help you with your history right then and there. So it's and at least get you a place to start. So it's really a very informative weekend that we have every year, and
Summer camp.
yes,
Spring camp.
Spring camp, yeah. So we have it in it this next year. It's going to be the end of March. So it's that's something I absolutely look forward to, and anything to do that has to do with bringing attention or bringing not bringing historical value to anything, whether it's our tribe or another tribe or something like that. That I try to if it's not during the day, during work days, I like to attend them.
Can't wait for you to retire. We'll do whatever you want.
I know. I can't wait to either. So.
Do you have things that you're really looking forward to after retirement? You talked a little bit about how you want to, hopefully maybe move back down the bayou, get connected to some land again. Is there any other stuff that you're really...
Well, I mean, just getting more involved, because my hands are tied on a lot of things, especially when it comes to getting involved politically, as activist and stuff, because I work for the state. So you have to abide by certain rules, and it keeps me away from voicing my opinion and from being involved in certain things, because they would get me in trouble. So I'm looking forward to, once I get retired, then I can go full force into some of these events that I'd like to be part of, activities, just about anything, food tasting.
Lots of food tasting.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are there any other barriers that you found, like a state job? Like, you need a job to be able to pay your bills, but it is a barrier. Are there other barriers that you found towards connection and reconnection with our people, or with any indigenous
Not
endeavor?
really, other than being in state work. I mean, I could possibly do certain things, but it's like that gray line, and it's best not to get involved in it, to be on the safe side instead of having to explain it later. It is to, so it's kind of like to be. I'm ultra careful of doing anything I really wanted to do, not knowing if it's going to cross that line or not, because. But that's really about it. Is a lot of activisms and stuff like that I would like to really be a part of and be speak up for, especially for the underdog. That I have to hold my voicing back. Biting my tongue. I think I bit my tongue off a couple of times. I can talk anymore.
I've learned a lot of useful skills from you around that. 'Cause Lord knows I didn't learn them from my father.
You got the outspoken part from him.
Very good at that one. Yeah, I guess you want to touch a little bit on how maybe dad or other people in your life have helped support your kinship, because in my life, Brandon helps support my kinship all the time. There's a lot of stuff I wouldn't be able to do without my partner literally supporting me and being able to take some of the weight off of the daily grind of just like day-to-day stuff, where he'll be like, hey, it's okay, I know that you have this really important ceremony to do, don't worry about this bill this month, like we'll take care of it. And so like my internal network helps support me to do this stuff. Is there cases that's been helpful for you?
Well, I mean, it's nice to be able to have that person, because really it's only been your dad and I for the longest time, because once we moved out of the South into when he was transferred to Maryland, it was just the two of us, and then with the kids. And so it was always just the four of us. Then we moved to to Massachusetts, and then had a little bit of his family, but not much, because his family was not a real tight family. So it still was us all looking out for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if it wasn't for us having each other's back, I think it would have been a whole lot harder, I guess, and he pushed me to, I think part of my hesitation on finding the family too was because of the fact we lived out of state, and how much how much time and everything it would take, and he had no problem with that. I was a little nervous about that, knowing that I would have to take time and in some cases some money to be able to keep continuing the search, but he had no problem with it, and especially now with the nice family reunion we've had, he looks at it as it being, well worth it.
Definitely worked out.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we depend on each other, so that's what I like is, and we're here for the kids too.
Thanks. Thank you for all your sacrifices that you've given to both me and my brother.
Your brother.
My brother. He's doing his best too, I guess. Love you, bro.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Thanks for talking about that. Appreciate it. Trying to think through all the kinship roads. Like, how else can we connect and talk about that? Do you want to talk a little bit about, shout out to Aunt Corrine and
always says Aunt Corrine.
What a great connector she is.
Yeah, between Aunt Corrine and all her friends, Miss Janie and all of them, those are our history lessons right there. I mean, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't know nearly as much about the tribe and especially its inner workings. But yeah, I mean, because she worked in the education department, and she saw a lot. She contributed a lot. She started the first powwows that the tribe ever had
around her kitchen table.
Yep. I mean, all these things that she was part of a really great group of people that put together a lot of these events in the early days, and it's nice to be able to hear them talk. That's what I like, is when she gets together with these people, all you do is just sit back and listen to them. It is just the most interesting thing, and you learn so much from them. The history of everything, some of these people I didn't even realize were principal chiefs at one time. It's leaders of, not just that, leaders in other aspects too. And they still are leaders too. It's just so nice to see how important they are, and how much we're going to lose when they leave, because you don't have that many people coming up from the ranks to take over for them, and that's what I think is scary. I'm really looking forward to being involved with the young people, because I see some of that, that drive that they want to keep a lot of this going, and that's what I'm keeping my fingers crossed, is that we can continue that. Yeah, because
the youth.
Yeah,
the youth.
Yeah, because the elders. I mean, the elders elder than me.
You got your certificate.
Yeah. They are the most interesting, and that's where I learned the most about our tribe is from them, not from our tribal leaders, but from these people. Yeah.
I consider them our leaders.
Yes,
not the
they are. Yeah, and
administration.
actually they were leaders back in the day too, and they were true leaders, and they're still leading even to this day. They may not be, out there in the public eye, but people know how to seek them out if they want any knowledge.
That's true. That's very true.
Can't think. I mean, just being able to put to rest that aspect of my life that I've found it, and now I can continue that aspect and continue learning, because it's not an overnight thing. You don't just learn it when you discover your family. It's a continuous learning process, and if you stop learning, then you stop contributing and everything, and you really need to just keep seeking out ways you can help kinfolk, whether it's your tribe or another indigenous tribe, because I don't look at it as our tribe. All tribal members, all tribes are fighting the same thing, and we all need to stick together. I don't believe in what do they call that, splinter tribes or anything like that. They're all your people, whether they're splinter tribes, other tribes. We all come from the same type of beginning, and we all had to. All our ancestors had to deal with the same thing. The colonizers, being pushed off your land, being dealt the bad blow, and being marginalized and everything. We still exist. Yeah. The languages, I love hearing that all these tribes are getting back into their languages, and I need to get back into that.
Do a little bit every time.
Yeah, but it's nice in all, especially Indian country thing. You hear every day. You see another tribe that's got their young people bringing back the languages, or getting back into it, and that's nice, because you have to hold on to that, because once the elders leave, then you're going to lose the language. So learn it now, so that you can carry it on for the next generation. And even some of our elders don't know the original language that our Houma language group have found. I mean, they're going beyond the Houma French now. They're going back to the Houma, and that's what I like, is they're going back to the beginning.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your language journey? Because I know that we have
which language?
I'll give you some language. But we're a very multilingual people, and having been taken out of this area, I mean, there is a real language loss that happens, and I see also the language gap between my grandparents and your generation, where your siblings and yourself.
Well, I see, that's another thing, because I wasn't raised down here, but being raised in my adoptive family, the only person that I knew spoke Cajun French was my adoptive father. My mother didn't. My adoptive mother didn't speak it. She was born in New Orleans, or born in Patterson, and her family was in New Orleans. So they were really out of the Cajun country per se. My dad was the Cajun speaker, and I used to love to listen to them and try to figure out what the heck they were talking about. But we weren't taught it, and then since then I found out that was something that they were wanting them not to speak in their. They were trying to drive it out of these people. Everybody speaks English now.
So even in your adoptive white Catholic family, that language was getting lost.
Yeah, I mean the only time you heard it was amongst the elders when we were back in the country where my dad grew up, and he only spoke to his siblings or to the older neighbors that they grew up with. That was the only time you heard them speaking the French amongst themselves.
Because I don't think I heard him speak French much ever.
Yeah, well, you were still
ever.
when we were up there, you were still a toddler. So when they were speaking it, you were too young to understand it. But yeah, we'd sit out on the porch on my uncle and aunt's porch and listen to them talk and just sit there and okay, and because there's always inevitably going to be an English word in there. Yeah,
They talk about you.
yeah. You waited to hear what the topic was, and try and then figure it out. But yeah, that was always the fun thing, and now you guys are in the language project are learning languages that we never even the Cajun French didn't even have. This is beyond them, and I want to learn. I'm not. I have to. I have all the dictionaries. I have everything. It's just I gotta focus.
That people interaction.
Yeah,
that's hard for me too.
Yeah, I have to be in a classroom with it or something. But yeah, I mean, I'm keeping up with it as far as that, and I save everything, I print everything, I do everything, but I have to be on a one-on-one, like you said, or with in a classroom or something where you're going to be taught.
Using it, yeah. I mean, I'm teaching the dog, the puppy right now in Houma, and that is actually quite like progressing my language learning quite a lot, because it's like you gotta fuss at the dog, but you gotta do it really quick because the first thing out your my mouth usually is the English, and you're like, stop it, wait, KU. Mais non.
But then nobody else can discipline the dog because nobody else knows the language.
Exactly, yeah. So other people are like, sit, and the dog's like,
yeah,
I don't care.
Yep. But other than that, yeah, I do like the fact that they are bringing the languages back, and not just with our tribe, but all the other ones. They're reclaiming their heritage, and I like that.
And the kinships that come with it too.
Exactly, because it brings them closer to their ancestors when they do that.
And the land too. There's a lot of ways in which I've found like, oh, this word is very directly connected to the land, and this is how we interacted with the land in this way, and so maybe I need to shift more towards that kind of thing.
Yep.
I'm really trying to take the lessons of the language into my own life. Has been its own journey too. Kinship with language.
They're all connected.
Yeah, and all of these life ways are connected. The fishing, the language, the community relationships, like how we interacted as a tribe, how we didn't have like a big chief. It was like, that guy knows what's going on, gotta talk to that dude.
Yep. Let's talk about fox.
Yeah, I'll see you later for dinner.
Yep. When the sun goes down, you better be home. I guess, is there any wishes that you have for kinship in the future? Well, I mean, the day and age here, everything seems to be separating everybody, that, unfortunately. You just got to hope that people hold on to their family and everything, because, you don't want other outside influences tearing you guys, everybody apart. But inevitable, sometimes it's inevitable, I know. So we just got to do our best. Hold things together. In spite of it all.
Yeah, it's tough. It's rough.
Fight together.
The language project has actually been really heartening for me because of that. Like all of a sudden, diaspora are still connected and connecting and stronger than ever, because our kinship with the language and with our culture is so strong. That's what's connecting us and keeping us together and defining our relationship with each other. And it's given me a lot of heart over the years. I hope to see some of my own kin more into the mix with learning language and stuff, like direct relatives. But I know that'll probably take time.
Yeah, especially the young kids. I mean, they're right now they got the
college,
family, all that good stuff. Yeah, but
life keeps on lifing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But it's even me. Really didn't think about it when you're younger. As you get older, then you start seeing, okay, well, I want to start getting involved in the family and stuff. So I think everybody to a certain point, they'll get to that one age where they're like, okay, now I got all this other stuff out of the way. Now let's concentrate on my history, my family, and all that other good stuff. So.
I see myself in that too. Like, it wasn't until my later 20s that I was like, this is what I want to do very pointedly. And yeah, I had to kind of come around and get the rest of life out
Yeah.
and have my basis of myself to stand on, and then
Yeah.
come back.
Yep. You always have that, I got to move away from home because I am being, held back and all this. And then you get out into the world, it's like, oh, I really miss home. Yeah.
I want a mix of these.
Yeah. Pretty much. So, yeah. I think everybody goes through that.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And sometimes I step back on my own journey and I'm like, how different or weird or out of the norm is this? And then hearing that you didn't even get involved in your stuff until the 30s, I was like, oh, I'm on track, I guess. Cool.
No, the thing is, in my 20s, partying was get that out of the way, and then whatever else came in. But it was always in the back of my mind, but I always pushed it back because I was always afraid of hurting somebody else, and I didn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have a good life, then I probably would have done a lot sooner. But I had a good life. I had some good parents, so I can't say anything against that. It's just I didn't have, I always wonder what would have happened if I had stayed in my birth family. What kind of life would I've had? Would I have had the education I have now? Would I have had the experiences? I would have a different experience, but I think more of what I probably had than what I wouldn't have had if I stayed would have been the education part of it, I think. And the book, getting into book reading and stuff like that, which, I haven't done a lot lately, but I was, like you, I saw that in you. I had a library of books, I was constantly reading. That's why I'm wearing glasses, because I was reading under the covers when I wasn't supposed to.
Me too.
Yeah, I know. So, I don't think I would have had that had I stayed. So I have to knock on wood that that helped, and it also helped me to be able to see beyond what the tribe or what you can do for the tribe instead of being a follower, which to a certain degree I am. I'm not much of a leader, but it opened my eyes up more that what can be done to help than if I stayed here and just took everybody, because I could see it, is I would have been just taking everybody at their word and believing what everybody was saying. That was just the type of personality I had growing up. Dad changed me on that a lot, but I'm thinking that parts of my being would have stayed in the back had I been in a different upbringing than I have now. If that made any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. The books thing stands out in particular. I mean, we've talked, or the Houma Language Project has talked with Aunt Corrine before about her experiences going to a boarding school and what that meant for her, and the education levels she received. And then I also think about my own time down the bayou in Montague, and as a child going into the Montague Library. I mean, I'm pretty sure my library at home is bigger than this. I'm pretty actually positive that my personal library at home is bigger than this library here for the entire community. And always being struck by that and just being like, well, I guess that's just how it is down here.
Yeah. It's a whole different way of learning. They go by what it is that they can afford, or they have,
Well, it survives the storm,
right,
too.
Exactly.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, there were no computers. I remember it was a big thing when the Montague Library got computers. They had, I think they only have a couple still, but it's like they have computers.
Yeah.
They did not when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, they still had the dial-up. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yep.
But that was good learning experience, that was sure.
Well, thank you. Let me check the time, but I think that, I think if there's anything else that you want to talk about, we have a few more minutes, but I have no more questions.
I can't really think of anything, but really am glad of finding the family, so that way it opened up that whole new world, my given history that, and what's surprising though is really me, who's never been raised in this environment. We know probably a little bit more than even our own relatives that have been raised here all their life. Your aunts and stuff, because they just know day-to-day stuff. They other than your Uncle Bud, who really got into the tribe and everything. A lot of them in the immediate family really never really got out beyond the survival part of their life. Not really getting into the history of.
You're talking about tribally related.
Yeah. They were into just the day-to-day lives and how they survived that. But as far as the history of the tribe and stuff like that, they really weren't into that. So we had to really kind of do that on our just.
Like a cousin knows a lot. Like I can think of certain cousins that know a lot.
Yeah.
And then other people that are just like, I'm not involved in that.
Right.
I don't have anything to do with that.
Well, yeah, I was talking about my immediate siblings.
Oh, yeah.
Other than Uncle Bud, immediate sisters and stuff, they really weren't into that per se so much. I mean, they kind of want, one of them kind of wanted to learn, but they weren't really interested, on that. And it's kind of interesting that we I wanted to learn more, so we had to go to, like you say, cousins and other people that were involved in the tribe that could help us out. Plus, the elders and stuff like that who are really our learning, our teachers there. So, yeah, and still learning.
Always. Well, thank you so much for this interview, Mother. Parental units.
You're welcome.
And yeah.
Thank
you. Love you.
No, love you too.